Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian-American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
Meeting to order. It is a regular town board meeting, town of Queensbury. It's May 21st, 2018. Time is about 7 p.m. Would you all please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you and welcome. First thing on the agenda is to set a public hearing for a sewage disposal variance application. Motion to go into the Board of Health. Moved by Councilman Brown, seconded by Councilman Medevere. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. We're now into the Queensbury Board of Health. So, Caroline, are you going up?
This is a resolution setting public hearing as sewage disposal variance application of Jonathan and Ruth Bodnar.
Yes, Bodnar. They live at 9 Pine Tree Lane, which is the 70 Point area, and they want to replace an antiquated on-site septic system and put in a Claris Fusion 450. That's an enhanced treatment unit. I see the designer and agent is here, Tom Hutchins. And they're going to have a 10 by 24 subsurface absorption field. They're asking for 3 variances to fit this on a lot that has a unusual, well, because of the lot geometry and the well location, they're trying to locate the bed as best they can, but they need variances to do that. 5.1 feet from the side property line in lieu of the 10-foot setback, 12 foot from the residence in lieu of the required 20-foot setback, 70.7 feet from an existing water supply well in lieu of the required 100-foot setback. So this is to set the public hearing. The public hearing will be on June 4th. Any questions before we set the public hearing from the town board? Seeing none, motion to set the public hearing for this sewage disposal variance application for Jonathan and Ruth Bodenhorn for June 4th. Any motion to move that forward? Moved by Councilman Medevere. Seconded by Councilman Perone. Roll call vote on this, please. Caroline?
Councilman Medevere? Perone?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes. So the public hearing on this sewage disposal variance application will be June 4th. All right, that's it for the Board of Health. Motion to move out of the Board of Health. Moved by Councilman Medevere, seconded by Councilman Perone. All those in favor say aye. Aye, it's unanimous. We're out of the Queensbury Board of Health. Now we're on to public hearing. There are 3 public hearings tonight, and they are on the 3 rescue squads, emergency squads, EMS squads, whatever you want to call them. And we'll have them one at a time, but they're basically very similar in terms of the word content of the contract. The budgets do vary. The new, basically, all 3 budgets, we're proposing operations to go up by 2%. And even though they asked for much, much more, we're offering paid staffing an increase of 10%. And I will go through the budgets in a minute. Also, the contracts are allotting extra per hour for BLS. It was $14.50, and the new contracts say $15. The ALS, or the medic, was $17.50 an hour and requesting $19. They some asked for a new category, and we put that in, the advanced EMT, at $16.50 an hour. Total costs, additional costs for operations is $10,032 for all 3 squads with a 2% increase, and a $90,000 increase or $80,000 increase in paid staffing, making a total increase in the budgets for the rest of 2018 of about $90,000. Now, the budgets, if approved by both parties, would be retroactive to the beginning of the year in terms of their budget. In terms of the paid staffing increase, that would be triggered July 1st. And so we have public hearings on them. So the first is West Glens Falls, Bay Ridge. I got them reversed. Bay Ridge. So another new thing in all 3 contracts, it was a request by many of the EMS people to please make all the contracts the same. So we did that. And on page 15, you will notice a new clause that's slightly different and updated from the old one. We had the requirement of a committee in the old contract, but this is the new language. The squad agrees to participate in the Town of Queensbury EMS Efficiency Use Management Committee as described herein. The committee shall consist of 8 members. In addition to the town supervisor and 1 other town board representative, each squad shall designate 1 operational and 1 administrative officer to the committee. Other town and squad officials will be welcome to attend as well. The committee shall meet approximately every 2 months, with such meetings to be arranged by the town supervisor's office on a day and time mutually convenient to all. The mission and the intent of the committee will be to discuss, among other things, cost-effective efficiencies while maintaining quality emergency medical service to town residents. All right, so Bay Ridge, their 2017 contract for operations was $145,442. We're proposing a 2% increase to $148,350. Insurance is the same at $21,507. Debt is the same at $47,400. Paid staffing increase from $250,000, $250,000, $275,000. And the net total for Bay Ridge was $464,349. We're proposing $492,257 for this year. Okay, so 2.1 public hearing. Caroline.
This is to consider a resolution approving year 2018 emergency ambulance services agreement between Town of Queensbury and Bay Ridge Rescue Squad, Inc.
Okay, so the public hearing is on, well, the town is proposing for the Bay Ridge Rescue Squad. Anybody in the public like to speak to this proposed contract? Yes.
Good evening.
State your names for
Hi.
the record, please.
Connie Tucker. I am past president. I'm the staffing coordinator for Bay Ridge Rescue Squad and the current secretary of the organization.
Regina Ladd, captain.
And
I'm sorry, did you say Ladd?
Ladd,
Yeah.
L-A-D-D.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. The operations issue, I mean, we did not have an issue with that at all. That's perfectly acceptable to us. I think a couple of issues. First of all, we never had a sit down with the town board, a workshop about pay raises, et cetera, other than that one time, which was several months ago. The other thing is that when I initially came to the town board 2 years ago and asked for a certain amount of money to increase our paid staffing so that we could go from having an ALS provider 12 hours a day to 24 hours a day, we had some surplus monies left over, which was how we were able to do it for that $250,000. Last year, we had very little wiggle room. We had to use some operational money in order to cover paid staffing at that time. And the reason for that is because where we sit in the middle of the town of Queensbury, West Glens Falls gets 3, 4, 5 calls a day, and we're helping them to cover. North Queensbury gets calls, we're helping them to cover. Many times our individuals have to be put on overtime because they have to stay past 6 o'clock at night. I mean, if a call goes out at 5 or 6, we have to respond. The average time for a call is 2 hours, especially if it's an ALS call. So the amount of money that we went to you originally with was to add a second crew on from 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening so that we could better be efficient. We're able to do that 2 days a week with volunteers, but we're not able to do that all the time. I think the overtime issue is where we really do need a little bit more. And we're not asking for a huge amount of an increase, but we aren't going to be able to cover any overtime costs or additional coverage costs that this town needs or deserves from Bay Ridge because we just don't have the manpower, we won't have the money to be able to pay these folks. So we were really hoping to be able to have a workshop so that we could come to some sort of an agreement as to how much more we could push to cover the paid staffing issues that we're having. Our call increase is up 25% this year. It was up that much last year. So no, I don't know where you want us to be able to pull that money from. I mean, we've got money operationally to be able to survive and do what we need to do to keep the ambulance in running order, to keep all the medical supplies, and the increase in calls also increases medical costs. Increases costs for running the ambulance, costs for gas, and with gas prices continuing to go up. So, I don't know where you think we're going to be able to pull the resources from that this town deserves.
And I have talked to you in between, and I did send an email out several weeks ago saying this is what the town's thinking. What do you think? I didn't hear much back. Okay, so what we heard from the squads was 30 and 40% increases in paid service. We couldn't comfortably do that for all three squads, and all three squads asked for 30 and 40% increases in their paid service. So we thought that 10% is a pretty good hefty one. And could we find some efficiencies? Because, it's really, to all three squads, to give them what they were asking for, like I said, 40% increase, just wouldn't work out budgetarily for this year. So if you could allow us, because I think we all admitted that we're probably going to go in that direction, because the volunteerism is down. Paid service is what every community in New York State and probably beyond is going to. But you're going to have to allow us to grow into it. So that's why we proposed what we thought was fairly hefty increase, 10%. We also thought that we gave you the hourly increase and created a new category that you asked for. So we gave you a lot of what you asked for, but we didn't give you as much in paid service. So we're talking about you're going to get retroactive pay to January 1st.
For operation.
The new salary schedule for the paid will start July 1st. So you have some buffer. You have more than you did last year, and I know that it's not enough, but it's what the town's proposing at this time to get us through the next 6 months anyway. Now we're also going to meet regularly to discuss these budget things and look for efficiencies and what can we do to try and slow this growth in paid service and still provide good service. So that was our thinking.
Just ask her a question.
So the concern isn't what you've offered. That's very reasonable. It's what we discussed. I think the only concern that we have now is when we do holiday pay, which is, I think, 4 or 5 holidays, time and a half, that is usually overtime. The 10% will cover those raises, but with those raises, you have overtime built into your budget. And the 10% covers your raises, but it will not cover the overtime. And it just won't.
It does more than cover the raises. I did a quick math thing. And it does give you more than you had even after the raises. Not a whole lot, I admit, not a whole lot more. But I'm asking you if you could work with that for the next 6 months.
Can I ask you, could I ask for something in return from this board?
Certainly.
I had whispered to Regina. I don't think that we would have an issue with that amount if, for some reason, we ran into a situation where we just weren't going to be able to continue to cover paid staffing expenses through the end of the year. If we had the option of coming back to the board and saying, we need X amount. I mean, you guys get our payroll, so you know exactly how much money is paid out every single pay period. So you know exactly what is budgeted, what is paid out that Kina writes the checks for, because we have to supply those to you. But so you will know exactly how much money we've actually spent, and if we came to you, you have all of those figures to know that we wouldn't be coming to you for additional monies if we really didn't need them. Bay Ridge historically has never come to this town board and asked for any more than it's ever needed. I've been here for 40 years. I've been involved with the leadership of the organization for 30 of those 40 years, and we have never asked for more than what we needed. So my question is to you gentlemen is, can you put a provision in that contract that says, if for some reason we are not going to be able to cover the costs of paid staffing through the end of the year, that we could come back to get those additional monies that we need?
We've always responded to our squads and our fire departments. And one thing I do appreciate, the volunteerism of our people, and they make the town a great place to live because of their volunteerism. But you always have the option to come to us to plead your case and say, here's where we are, we're in trouble. And we've never denied any fire or emergency squad that time, and we've always worked together to solve the problem. We've
I
always
just want to
done
make
that.
sure that's on the public record, that's all.
Yes,
Okay.
understood.
Because if it's on the public record, then, you know, nobody can go back and say, well, we never discussed that, so.
Understood.
I think you have to consider our position too. I mean, we can't say guaranteed that you'll get more money because, you know, you have to be incentivized to try to come up with those efficiencies to work within the budget and the monies that you have.
Mr. Frone, I understand that, you know, and
Yeah.
working towards those has never been an issue. I mean, we've always participated in any kind of meetings that we've ever had. I mean, we started those meetings 2 years ago, and there's never been an issue with that ever occurring. I just feel that, you know, with the increase in calls, if there comes to some point, we've got a clause in there that says we have to cover 97% of all the ALS calls. Well, if we run out of money because we've had to pay additional monies because people have had to stay 2 and 3 hours over their shift, or somebody has called off and we've had to pay overtime, then we're going to be in violation of that contract, of that section of the contract as well, because now we have no money to be able to pay to be able to provide that service 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, which is what you've got stated in this contract.
And it was our understanding that that was going to be removed from the contract. When Kelly and I sat down with you in your office, it was stated that that would be removed, that that was a former board member's codicil, and that would be removed.
I did forget that. All right, well, do you know where it is in the contract?
It is
Find it.
section 5.
And we all do our best to be able to.
Yeah.
Section 5.
I thought I remembered everything.
EMS squad duties, section D. We were assured that that would be removed.
I remember that discussion. So, is it all right to give Bob the instructions to go ahead and work on that one?
Yes.
Bob, can you work on that?
If you guys agree that you approve the revisions to paragraph D consistent with comments and form satisfactory to town supervisor, I'll work with you and we'll draft something.
Okay, we'll do that.
So,
And we promise you we'll be here. You need us. We will address your needs as best as we can. The door is always open. And we'll get rid of or alter that section 5 paragraph D like we agreed to.
Yeah.
And we'll do it for all.
The 97% there is.
Yeah, I missed that, sorry. And we'll do it for all 3 contracts. Whatever we do for one,
For
and
everything.
if you go through the contracts, almost word for word the same.
Okay.
Okay.
All right?
Very
Very
good.
good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Before you give up the table, I just had a question. Somebody brought to my attention today, back in 2009, there was discussions about the 3 EMS squads merging. And it looked like it was going someplace, and then I guess it just kind of fell off. Now, you said you've been involved with...
On more than one occasion, we've been there.
Okay.
Okay, and,
I mean, considering how costs are escalating, maybe we're at that point again to maybe start those conversations again?
I cannot speak for the other 2 agencies in the town of
Understand.
Queensbury. I think that Regina and I could probably speak for Bay Ridge. That has never been something that we have not wanted to do or not supported in the past. Would not have an issue with discussing it and working on it in the future. But this has to be a project, and I think that these meetings that are held every 2 months is something that if the town board feels that this is something that needs to be worked on, then you can always depend on Bay Ridge to come to the table with suggestions or
Okay.
I think there are many ways that we can do that, starting with a consortium for purchasing. Even if you start in one section and then work your way there.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking at, look, just dropping the last sentence altogether and, or,
That sounds fun.
yeah,
That would
5D, just drop the last sentence.
take it through the 97%.
For the purpose of this.
Yeah.
All right. Public hearing still open on Bay Ridge. Anybody else like to speak to Bay Ridge? All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the public hearings for all three and see where we end up. Is that gonna be okay? And then we'll go back and vote on each one separately. All right,
So do you want to close Bay Ridge and then open the next?
yeah, I'll close Bay Ridge and now open the hearing for North Queensbury Rescue Squad.
Good evening. I'm John Hodgkins, Treasurer, North Queensbury Rescue. We do have some concern. I think when we wrote it in, we wrote there was concern about the contract. Obviously, for the public, this process starts in the middle of July for us. We end up putting together the budget for the next year, a 5-year capital plan, and put it together. And this past year, we had one workshop meeting in December to discuss some of the items that came up. And at this date here, past tonight, we got 55 days to this process starts all over again. We're going to go through this. So we're, really, and what we put together as a request, as you said, we're not getting what we requested this time, but be aware that we're going to be approaching this in the fashion that we're looking to fund. One of the things that concerns, the big concern that I'm looking at, and I think this is a concern that's shared with the other squads, is the town, as far as what you're collecting, the town has underestimated the revenue you've been bringing in, and you've been overestimating the expenses that you've been putting out for a number of years here. In 2015, there was $262,000 extra at the end of the year that was added to the fund reserve. In 2016, according to the town audit, the certified town audit, $261,000 was moved to the fund reserve. Over $150,000 of that came from the paid ambulance service that went into this fund balance. At the end of 2016, there was $1,126,939 in the fund reserve for emergency services. The majority of the, more than half of that was put in from the EMS side of this, and a lot of it came from people that were paying for the ambulance type service. I don't have the numbers for 2017 because I don't think does anyone know what the actually ambulance service was? I know ours was up 40% this year over 2017 from the previous year.
You mean the revenues?
The revenue that came in.
Yeah, well, after looking at the revenues, the prospective revenues, and the expenses, my budget officer was quite alarmed with the 10% increase. Quite alarmed.
Well, that means the revenues went. That means that the revenues went down significantly from one year to the other.
Well,
because you put perspective, the 2016 revenue was $1,144,000, and that again was $90,000 over what you had budgeted at that point. And I assume they've gone up again. In 2018. The ambulance service, you have budgeted $1,055,000, which is $90,000 less than you actually received in 2016, and it's less than you received in 2015. So, I mean, it would seem like it'd have to go down significantly to make a concern there. The other thing that we're looking at here is that for this budget period now, you have allocated $1,940,000. The three budgets that you proposed are a little less than $1.7 million. On top of that, there is, we have some insurance and some retirement numbers, which I estimated at about $125,000, which means that you're expending this year $110,000 less than you've appropriated. Now, we've got a full fund balance with over $1 million, well over $1 million on 2016, and I assume it grew in 2017 again. I'd have to be, because I know everybody's running like crazy from what they used to. That puts us in a big fat cash position as far as that goes. I guess my question is why aren't we spending the money that we're receiving? And now we've got new paid ambulance rates. Now I know we've increased the, you're going to put out 80,000 extra, but to my estimates, with it's a 25% increase in the cost of, on average, between the ALS increase, the BLS increase, the new AEMT increase. It's going to bring in 250 to 300,000 more annually in revenue. Is there a plan that's coming up? We're collecting a lot of money, not dispersing it. If we were just to disperse the money and put it in for paid service, I know our company would have met the requirement that we requested this year with no problem. And it would not be going into fund, we're not reducing the fund balance 1 cent. I believe I did the numbers for Bay Ridge too, and I think they would have received the 390 that they were looking for, because they're they're 30% of the budgeting. West is 52, we're 19%. We put these numbers together. I think it's a very reasonable way to look at it. What I'm going to request of the board, I appreciate what they did with some of the wording in here on the contract, but I'm requesting that the board look at the paid monies that came in 2017, the new monies that are coming in, and look at having those monies available throughout this year strictly for paid personnel that come up, because we are getting tight on doing this. We're running more runs. As we all know, the training is much more difficult to keep an EMT or an ALS a trained person, a medic up there. And I'm asking for the board to look at putting a proposal that says that overage over what you've estimated is available directly for paid service at discretion, which is fine. So you can look at everyone individually, because some of these companies might start doing runs and they might need an ALS tech to be 24/7 and sitting there all available. I mean, obviously, I know in North Queensbury we get the fewest calls, but we also probably percentage-wise get an awful lot of standbys and an awful lot of mutual aid calling us, because we do have an ALS tech up there, so it has to move from one spot to the other because they're busy and put together. That means our area is not covered anymore, and that makes a difficulty in I. But that's what I'm looking at here. I think it's a concern for all three companies. Again, we're walking in here. What I'd like to also request, we have 55 days. I'm planning on submitting our budget request. I know you've got to have your budgeting together by October to put your town budget plan. I think between now and October is when we have to have meetings so that we've got this all ironed out, so that we can look at the appropriations for next year and they're proper. And I think we need to be looking at the fund balance, not to reduce it, but not to increase it anymore. $1 million is a lot of money to have extra, and there's nothing calling. We are budgeting completely for equipment. We're budgeting completely for supplies that we have. We are fully insured, so if something blows up on us, we can go get it replaced. We're in good shape in all those ways, and so are the fire companies. So it covers in that area also. And I think it's worthwhile. And I think these are the first items that should come up in front of the board. The board spent a lot of time on some other items this year, and we're 8 months behind right now, and I hope we can move forward.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, John. Thank you. But we do bring in about $1 million in revenue, and the total cost of EMS services in the town of Queensbury is about $2 million.
We bring in about 1.2, and we collect about almost 900,000 in taxes.
We collect the other $1 million through taxes.
Yep, 800.
Now, if we were to go up, and right now we're doing a 2% increase in operations, 10% increase in paid service, and that puts us knocking on the door of the cap anyways.
Well, there's only a cap on tax.
John,
tax.
Bottom line is that we need to look at efficiencies between these three squads.
Well, I hear that, but there's no efficiency savings in putting out how many ambulances are running around town. There just isn't. I mean, you're going to have, there can be small efficiencies as far as how we buy supplies and items like this, and we can get them around the around the outside. But what I'm saying, John, is we've been taking in an extra $250,000 a year and not spending it. If we're not spending it, then if we're not distributing it out here, then we're not using it up. And again, it's right. It's just the numbers. I've got the audits here from the other years in front of me, and the fact is that this money was not spent.
So what we're proposing to give North Queensbury, and I don't want to talk about number of runs, $322,000.
Yes.
Okay. That's
yes.
what we're proposing.
We spent $227,000 on staffing last year, and our budget was $170.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was necessary to come up with. So in order to put an ALS tech on the road, according to, remember you did increase the rate. It's almost $170,000 a year for the 8,760 hours in a year.
And we're proposing an extra $19,000.
I know, and we're using it all up, correct? And we're getting 187, and we're gonna get 187. We spent 227. So I guess my point there is money here that has already been collected, that it's been overestimated, it's been underestimated, and it's there. I believe somebody's looking at it as awful conservative, but we've got $1.1 million as an audited.
And we spent $2 million, so the taxpayers make up the difference.
They did. No, that's all part of this, John. They've got $1 million in your fund balance. You increased fund balance by what?
No, we don't.
Well, I got it right here. I got the audit in front of me. I have the audit sitting here in front of me.
Did you get that from Barbara?
I got it right off. It's online. You can go on to www.queensbury.net.
Barbara is the one that can give you the exact fund balance at this time. And let me tell you, what I proposed, she didn't like. The extra $90,000.
You're saying that the information that is online at Queensbury.net is inaccurate? Well, and that's where you get all this information is right online. It's the exact thing. It's the audited financial statements, and that's where I took this from.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's what. Let's have Barbara look and give us the audited financial statements, and we'll find that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in the public hearing for North Queensbury Rescue Squad, what we're proposing? Yes, sir.
Travis Whitehead. Just to start off on that fund balance thing, there's nothing special about the EMS fund balances. Every single budget item in this town is fat, and that needs to be a problem. EMS, I'm sure, is fat as well, but it's not the only one, and that's what I wanted to say about that. But I'm not, we do have a problem, and I'm not going to stand here and tell you that you should be paying somebody less than $16.50 an hour for the job that they do, because I don't believe you should. If anything, we're probably light on that, I would guess, I would hope. And it's always been my opinion that you pay a little bit more, you get a lot more. You shouldn't be the low person in the area as far as wages. However, there are problems here, and they have been identified, for many years. And, the elephant in the room is the same one that was in 2009 when you quoted about that article. And it is the fact that we have 3 different EMS units in town with, you have 3 different contracts there that say that you need to have 97% ALS support on each of the 3. I mean, if you had 1, they might decide that we'd have 2 for the town or something like that. There are some efficiencies there that can be had, should be had. And reading from that article, there's some interesting statistics there. This is back in 2009, so over 9 years ago. It was January 22nd, 2009 was the article. And it said that at that time, West Glens Falls was budgeted $753,000. Today it's $885,000. That's a modest increase, but not, over 9 years, a big one. West Bay Ridge went from 206 to 491. That's huge. Maybe there's reasons for that. I don't know. North Queensbury went from 176,000 to 321,000. Now, the article goes on to say that STEC estimated that the West Glens Falls squad was responsible for about 3/4 of the calls in the town. Bay Ridge a little less than 1/4, and North Queensbury about 5%. So just to use those numbers, which may not be accurate today, but I would guess were accurate back when this article was published, and looking at what you're budgeting now, West Glens Falls, which is getting close to 3/4 of the calls, is only getting 52% of the budget. Bay Ridge, 29% of the budget, maybe 25% of the calls. North Queensbury is 19% of the budget, yet only 5% of the calls. So you can see the little guy is having a problem, and there could be efficiencies there if you consolidate, would be my guess. It also says in the article that Bay Ridge is only 4 miles distant from North Queensbury. So, and they're also saying there was no thought about closing either station, that they would remain staffed. So I would focus on getting the pay up, but getting control of, why do you need 3 chiefs? You need more Indians, right? Why do you need 3 chiefs? The 3 sets of expensive medications that probably expire and have to be thrown away before they're used. ALS people, very expensive to keep around. You need one at each spot, or can there be efficiencies here? And I think there can be efficiencies there. And I would hope that you would give this the thought it deserves, and also not to come to the public 5 months after the contract has expired, but maybe some months before the contract will be negotiated. And that would be a better time to get some of this stuff. I can't imagine that you're going to go away today without a unanimous decision here to go ahead and sponsor all 3 again, because your backs are against the wall. And it's almost an insult to us to come to us, because it is required to have a public hearing, but to come to us, 5 months late, probably 8 or 10 months late when you look at it, is not the way to run a business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment, one of the requirements of the contract again is this EMS Efficiencies Management Committee, okay? So many of the efficiencies discussed herein, and many who have not been discussed, will be brought forth as part of this and looking at the next budgetary cycle. All right, anybody else like to speak to North Queensbury and the proposed contract and budget? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the hearing on North Queensbury, and we will open the hearing on West Glens Falls Emergency Squad. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to the proposed contract and budget for the West Glens Falls Emergency Squad?
Hello. My name is Dan Albert. I'm the past captain, past vice president here representing the West Glens Falls Emergency Squad. Like our partners in North Queensbury and Bay Ridge EMS, we have similar concerns with our contract. We would have liked to have been more involved and started negotiations much more sooner. As was already noted, the increase in call volume over the past several years, West Glens Falls has seen an increase in call volume about 24-25%. But our staffing levels have really remain the same and haven't changed to adapt to that increase in call volume. We've seen additional senior living communities and things of that nature put increased burden on our staffing. With regard to the current contract, we have concerns that, certainly with the increased call volume, we, through negotiation, might have had better chance to identify some of the gaps and where we might need additional resources to fill them. One of the other issues that we look towards for this year is we currently have a vehicle that's now going on 9 years old, one of our ambulances. So that vehicle, which was normally in a regular rotation, has now been taken out of regular rotation, putting increased burden on the two newer vehicles. So when that's out of service, as we get sometimes 2, 3, and even 4 calls at a time. So if we are able to have a reliable vehicle that we could put in service on a regular basis, certainly that would help us when we have more volunteers and have the increased calls. So, and I believe the other issue we had concern with was the 97%. So that's been addressed. So
that's been addressed, and so the 2017 budget for West Glens Falls was a little over $842,000, and this year we're proposing $885,427, so that's better than a $43,000 increase in 1 year. And you've heard the discussion that we had before. We understand your needs. We did boost paid service considerably. And most of that increase, of $43,000 increase, most of that was for paid staffing. So, we listened to you. We heard that you wanted to increase the salaries so that you could attract the number of paid service that you need. We got rid of that section tonight. We're going to put together an efficiency committee in which we're all going to meet and air where we can improve and get better. And hope we can live together for the next 6 months with what we have, and then we'll work on, as part of the efficiencies committee, will be to start discussing budgets. So if these get approved tonight and you approve them, we'll go forward with working on next year's budget, or maybe even the next 3 years' budget. It might even be better for all of us. Is there anything else, Dan?
I believe that's it.
Okay. Thanks. All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Jim Mackey, Town of Queensbury. I'd just like to do a little bit of a review of history. My memory as I get older is not quite as good, but I do remember a few things. About 3 years ago, Mr. Medevere, I thought, made a great suggestion. He suggested that there be a meeting among the town board and the squads to start looking at efficiencies. You remember that, Mr. Medevere? About 3 months after that, sitting here, I asked the town board, has anything come of that? And the answer I got from the supervisor was, oh yeah, Mr. Van Ness and I had a meeting. But we all know that of all people, Mr. Van Ness is not going to do anything to put any kind of a squeeze on any of the squads. So I suggest that while I believe there are efficiencies to be had, that the town board has got a bigger problem with efficiencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to the proposed contract and budget for West Glens Falls Emergency Squad? Yes, sir.
Evening. My name's Tom Ross. I live in Queensbury. I've been a CPA for 43 years, and for 9 of those years, my firm did the audit of the fire companies. As I sit here and listen tonight, I didn't come prepared. When you talk about efficiencies, I can tell you, and I don't know, I've been on my own for the last 5 years. I'm retired, semi-retired. when you talk about efficiencies within these fire companies, the one thing I can tell you is that the companies themselves independently are providing a fantastic service with great efficiency, number one. Number two, as a CPA who handled hundreds of, I was not an auditor, I was a tax and management consultant. Looking at the situation, I would have to think that this board should take the time and make the effort to form a committee with expertise individuals to tell you that a consolidation or a merger, that's going to be your greatest efficiency. It is. I remember back, and I can't remember the year, but I can remember looking at all these statements used to come across my desk because I was the president. And our auditors at that time made comments that there were certain efficiencies to be garnered with consolidation and or merger. And I'm going back, like I say, I retired pretty much in 2012, but so I don't know the last 5 years. But I have to tell you that during the years we audited, with the exception of one of the companies, which I'm not going to name, and is not one of the ones tonight, they are operating at peak efficiency. In terms, yeah, we might save some money on supplies or on this or putting personnel here, but as Travis said tonight, having 3 chiefs and this and that and the other thing, there's going to be bound efficiencies which can be poured back into these companies. And as far as the surplus goes, the purpose of a surplus in governmental accounting is not to see how big you can get. It's to be there for emergency or unusual situations. It's not to pound on our chest and say, we've got $1 million in an emergency fund. It just isn't. And lastly, one of the great disappointments I've always had with the town of Queensbury, and it certainly is true here, is we have all these audits performed, but nobody ever comes to the public from the auditing firm to say, they issue a letter, an opinion, which is 3 paragraphs. But these people are the most intimate with these figures, but nobody comes to a town board meeting and says, we've conducted the audit, blah, blah, blah. When I had my firm, we were always prepared to come to a public forum. We did it with BOCES. We did it with the city of Glens Falls. We did it with the LDC, and so on and so forth. And I think you could save yourselves a lot of trouble is instead of you speaking for the auditors, if you let the auditors speak for themselves. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good suggestion. Anybody else like to speak to West Glens Falls Emergency Squad contract and budget? Yes, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. Mike Wild from Queensbury. As I think you guys know, I'm also on the Warren County Board of Supervisors. And, I was intrigued by reading the paper this weekend of this meeting because I am on a task force with the county to look at consolidated services in EMS. And unfortunately, Queensbury and a few others don't seem to be represented in this. So I've done a little digging, and I think it's important that that we understand some of the direction that the county is heading. And one is full-time benefited employees, which will result in a couple of things that'll be somewhat painful. One will be the budgets will go up to keep pace. Secondarily, because there's a lack of trained individuals, there most likely will be, to use a more of a crude word, poaching from existing EMS squads to satisfy this proposed Warren County. So I just want to bring this up as a case in point as you go forward with your negotiations to think about the big picture. And I think as a Queensbury resident as well as a Warren County resident, I don't necessarily stay in Queensbury. I tend to move around the county a bit. I think many of our residences too, but I think we need to start taking a bigger picture view of how do we approach some of this stuff. Consolidation, it seems to make sense on the outset, but there's many different factors that complicate any kind of changes that we do. And I just implore you and ask you to take that bigger picture view of what's happening not only here in Queensbury, but also within the county, and address this lack of skilled individuals that we all hopefully don't have to. But if we do need to rely on them, hope that they're available and they're the best we can get. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I have a little doubt in my mind that as we go down the road in the EMS world that we will go to full paid service. It's just a matter of time. Anybody else like to speak to the contract and the budget proposal for West Glens Falls Emergency Squad? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. All right, so we've had 3 public hearings on all 3 EMS squads that provide very good coverage for the town of Queensbury. And as we move forward to the public, I think it's generally well known that things are going to get more expensive, okay, for us all, if we want good coverage. And the training and the time required to be a volunteer is just way too much for today's families in today's world. We will have to go to paid. They have to be paid. They have to have health insurance. They have to have coverage. They have to have a retirement plan. It's just the way we're going to go. So how do we get there? All right. Well, step by step. But I think we're going to have to get there eventually. Is it going to be 5 years or 10 years? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But as you can see, the request for increases this year for paid service, we're ringing on the door of 30 and 40% increases just for this year. So we proposed something moderate. It didn't seem to make anybody happy, but we're going to try and do the best. We're going to look at efficiencies. We're going to look at consolidation. We're going to look at those things. That's the whole purpose of this efficiencies committee. All right, so those are my thoughts. Any thoughts from the other 2 town board members?
No, just that we need to start working on this now.
Yeah.
We can't wait anymore.
No, exactly.
It's getting to the point, John's point, we have 55 days to get ready.
Okay, so let's address these contracts and budgets that we proposed and see if they'll pass the board tonight. All right, so we'll go to voting.
So is this 2.1 Bay Ridge?
2.1 Bay Ridge, and this, if it gets moved forward and seconded and voted on, what did we decide to do, Bob, with the
to delete the last sentence,
just
paragraph 5D.
All right, this last sentence, which talks about the 97%, get rid of the last sentence. And I think the squads favor that. Okay, so anything you're putting forward, that applies to all 3 contracts.
I already sent Pam an email to make sure the changes got made.
All right, so for the first one, if you'll read that, or did you already?
I did, I can do it again.
I'm sorry.
Resolution approving year 2018 emergency ambulance services agreement between Town of Queensbury and Bay Ridge Rescue Squad, Inc.
All right, anybody move that contract forward?
I'll introduce.
Introduced by Councilman Medevere.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Ferone. Roll call vote on 2.1.
Councilpersons Ferone,
Yes.
Stroud,
Yes.
and Medevere.
Yes.
Okay. 2.2, Caroline, please.
Resolution approving year 2018 emergency ambulance services agreement between Town of Queensbury and North Queensbury Rescue Squad, Inc.
Anybody wish to move that forward? introduced by Councilman Medevere.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Farrell. Roll call vote on that, please.
Councilperson Stroud,
Yes.
Medevere,
Yes.
and Ferraro.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Resolution 2.3, Caroline.
Resolution approving the year 2018 Emergency Ambulance Services Agreement between Town of Queensbury and West Glens Falls Emergency Squad, Inc.
Okay, motion to move that forward. Introduced by Councilman Medevere.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Ferrone. Roll call vote on 2.3, please, Caroline.
Councilpersons Medevere,
Yes.
Ferraro,
Yes.
and Stroud.
Yeah. All right, well, hopefully the squads will come in, sign it, and we'll get busy right away on working on, I'd say, a 2 or 3 year contract, okay? See where we go for that. All right, thank you, everybody, for your input on those public hearings. I knew that it wouldn't be easy, and I knew it wouldn't make everybody happy, but we tried to do our best for now. And we do want to work at getting better. But I want to thank all the volunteers for everything you do. It's deeply appreciated by the community. Okay.
John, who would be coordinating those meetings that can come out of your office with each of the squads?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, Victoria will be doing that.
Yeah.
So I'll put her right on that tomorrow for our first meeting. And I think that Jennifer's shown an interest in being with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
But should she not be able to make it, Victoria will put out who can make it.
Okay.
That's not to prohibit, if you wish. We can have workshops with the town board as long as they're publicly noticed, with all board members present and representatives of the EMS squad present too. I don't know if that's the most efficient way to start off, but let's start off with Jennifer and I trying to work out some details. But if
I think
the
as
board
long
wants
as
to go,
if you bring recommendations to the board, I think that should be more than sufficient.
yeah. All right, thank you. All right, resolutions. We have 13 resolutions before us tonight. And I will briefly describe each of the 13, and then I'll have a public privilege of the floor where the public can speak to any of the resolutions before us tonight. Now, if there's another town issue that's not related to the resolutions, I will give you the opportunity to bring that forward to us toward the end of the meeting. But this part of the meeting will be just to speak to the resolutions before us right now. Resolution 4.1. Caroline?
Resolution authorizing renewal of agreement with Emergency Management Resources, LLC for processing of billing and collection of emergency services.
All right, well, it's interesting. That's related to the EMS squads, and we do bill for service. And EMR is the agency that we hire to do this billing and for us. Resolution 4.2.
Resolution authorizing engagement of Chief Pete's Lawn Care for one-time cleanup of abandoned or neglected property.
All right, well, this, George is familiar with this. There are 35 Fox Hollow, which is not being taken care of. I understand that it's in transition. But I also understand that we've discussed it with the owner's attorney, that something needs to be done. So we can go ahead and do it, or we can add something to this resolution that it should be cleaned up by a certain date. Now, the outside is untidy, but there's a hole in the garage door, and rodents are reportedly getting into the house that way. So, and anything else you might know more, George?
No, I mean, other than the fact that, I think the property's been sitting there like this for a while. And I know there was another email that came by about, the family going through, somebody being assigned as a trustee, but not sure how long that will take. I think this should be taken care of now. And some of those things could go on for months, unfortunately, so.
You want to set a due date that house needs to be taken care of by a certain date, or we will hire Chief Pete's at a cost of $550 to repair the garage door, remove the brush and leaves and other debris from the front yard and mow it and so forth.
We want to give them a month's notice? I think that's too short, or what do you think, Joe?
I say May 15th or June 15th.
June 15th, so even shorter. I was going to say July 1st, but.
Yeah, I'd say let's get them busy.
All right, that's fine.
I mean, 2 more weeks of that lawn not being tended to.
Right.
3 weeks.
I mean, the current resolution says 10 days of getting notice. Just to remind you what the current resolution says.
Is that too little, too long? Let's stick with 10 days. Dave Hatton suggested I set a due date. To make his world easier.
Okay, that's fine.
So we'll go with May 15th. Or June 15th, yeah.
We'll adjust the resolution.
Yes.
Okay.
Bob will.
I'm going to change the within 10 days to by June 15th.
Yes, thank you. Okay, resolution 4.3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Resolution adopting new tapping fee schedule for town water department.
All right, well, Water Superintendent Chris Harrington has said that, you know, our prices are too low for what services we provide, and he suggested some increases in them. For example, proposed fee with a meter for a tap size 3/4 inch short, it was $9.20. We're offering to do $11.75 as the new meter rate, as the new rate. 3/4 inch long was $14.50. Now it's being proposed for $2,275. So you'll see in each case a slight increase. The present meter is $3.15. The new proposed meter charge would be $3.75. So at some communities, some people tell me these connections, water connections, are in terms of the thousands of dollars in California. Some places in California says it can cost you as much as $22,000, somebody said, to get connected. It's hugely expensive. I don't know. I think the rate increases, the last time we had a rate increase was 4 years ago. It's probably due. I think they're fair if you look at them. Okay? Nothing huge. Resolution 4.4.
Resolution engaging engineering services of Barnum and Judas PC related to design of traffic signal at intersection of Aviation and Cottage Hill roads.
All right, we were receiving accolades over the new light signal that finally got in front of Queensbury School at the Queensbury School and Church intersection. One of the reasons why it took so long is because we worked with the school and an engineer being supplied by the AGFTC, Barnum and Judas, who worked out a phase plan. A phase 1 was to replace that light. Phase 2 was to add a new intersection with the Cottage Hill Road and a western intersection to the school, to another section of the campus, rather than the conflicts at one intersection right now. And the phase 3 would be a right-hand turning lane that AGFTC is putting or has put on the federal docket for grant funding, and that would be a right-hand turning lane, right going into the eastern entrance. The traffic modeling that was done with this shows that these improvements will bring to level, at worst, level C. Okay, the traffic levels go A, B, C, D, F. F is failure. All right, it is at F now at times, as you all know, that go through that area, especially around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. After these improvements, the lowest level will be C. The other improvements, the other times, it'll be level A. It'll run quite efficiently. Now, the two intersections, though, have to be coordinated, meaning they have to talk to one another. So you needed specialized equipment to make this happen. You needed coordinated design and engineering to make this happen. So, fine. We put in phase 1, it's working beautifully. The school just notified us that they would like to expedite phase 2. And they plan on putting in the new entrance this summer. That's a problem. Well, we can work fast and get this designed and get it out to bed, but I understand that one of the pole manufacturers has failed, and now there's one light pole manufacturer, and it's taking as long as 6 months to get these light poles. An example is the intersection that we put forward here at Bay Bridge and Bay Road. People ask me, what's the holdup? We don't have the light poles. All right, the bidder of the project, Still Sing Engineering, they can't finish the project without the light poles. All right, so the school said they'll work with us. They understand the problem. I let them know there's a problem, but we plan on going forward. So we'd like to hire Barnum Judas to put together the nut and bolt design details. And they're also going to provide an overview of the project to make sure whatever contract wins the bid does it properly. So they're going to provide that service, and they're asking for $18,585. Resolution 4.5.
Resolution authorizing engagement of the Chazen companies for provision of design and engineering services related to Gurney Lane Pool repair and improvement project and authorizing advertisement for bids.
Okay, so this is authorizing engagement of Chazen Company for the design and engineering services related to the project generally as described. 1, removal of the current painted surfaces by method of sandblasting. 2, repair any weak concrete sections and provide a purge coat to give finished surface. 3, recoat pool along with any New York State Department of Health required safety markings and lane dividers. And 4, other improvement requirements deemed necessary to be compliant with Department of Health or public swimming facilities. So Chazen has offered to provide the needed engineering services for $18,400 as delineated in their December 5th, 2017 proposal revised March 22nd, 2018. Resolution 4.6.
Resolution approving transit merchant market license for Northeast Realty Development, Kevin Quinn and Naomi Polito.
All right, they're asking for, as they do every year, a transit merchant license. Now, people always ask me, why do we have this? Then I remind them of the days when tractor trailers used to pull up on the side of the road, sometimes getting owner's permission if they're on private property, sometimes they didn't, and selling all kinds of wares. I mean, the favorites seem to be those velvet paintings, especially of Elvis Presley. But you also had the tin can armored man, and you had all kinds of things. It was presenting an attractive nuisance. It was presenting traffic problems. It was presenting safety issues, a variety of safety issues. And they were competing sometimes, not so much with the velvet paintings, but with our local businesses. So we adopted a transit merchant market license. So what happens up here, this is where the teepee is and the leather outlet and so forth up on Route 9. Americade's coming. This is for June 5th through the June 9th. And all kinds of merchants will be coming in on this piece of property, and this is a license to allow them to do so. It's not an absolutely free license. It will cost money. And so that's what this is, giving permission and approval for Northeast Realty Development to do their thing at Americade. 4.7.
Resolution approving audited bills, warrant of May 22nd, 2018.
All right, well, this is bills. The bills have to be approved by the board before they can be paid. This has a warrant with a run date of May 17th and a payment day of May 22nd, totaling $807,528.12. Resolution 4.8.
It's a revised resolution authorizing award of bid for Buckby Road Culvert Replacement Project.
All right, well, if any of you are familiar with Buckby Road, you know there's a culvert under there that was put together in the old days with some guide rails and a tree. Good thing the tree's still living, that the guide rails lean against. All right, someday, and hopefully not too soon, that culvert's gonna fail. George, I'm sure you know what culvert we're talking about. That's your old stomping ground. All right, so we have put together construction documents. We went out to bid. The lowest bidder was James Malroy for an amount of up to $186,000. Why I say that is there's certain allowances in the contract in this bid in case they hit rock and so forth. This covers the worst case scenario. So we expect it to be less than this. And not only that, but we have grants of $35,000. I think they're asking for more to be applied toward this. But this is the go-ahead. And it also, this resolution allows us to sign a license agreement with the city of Glens Falls because we'll need to work on their property to finish this project up. So the low bid was $186. Just to give you a contract, we got 6 bids. The high bid was $260,620. Okay, just so you get an idea what's going on. 4.9.
Resolution authorizing execution of Department of Environmental Conservation consent order regarding treatment of Hovey Pond.
Solitude, who did the treatment for Hovey Pond, and the DEC didn't see eye to eye on things. There were 2 things. It's fun. I don't understand what's going on here, but Solitude is the one that's going to have to pay the $1,500 fine. DEC says that the shoreline of Hovey Pond was not posted with the water use restriction. I walk that at least once a week. They were posted. Steve Levering, okay, director of Park and Rec, said, we put them up. They were up for the 48 hours minimum. DEC says they didn't see them and they're going to find Solitude. The other thing was, DEC observed that the footage of water running in and out of Hovey Pond was turned on. Well, the understanding of Solitude, the way I understand it, was the reports have to be done by DEC. I guess they were done. But then DEC has to give permission to turn the water on. Solitude thought that once the reports were done, and they were okay and satisfactory, and they could turn the water on. DEC said, no, not until we say you can turn the water on. So those 2 things got Solitude a $1,500 fine. Resolution 410.
Resolution authorizing settlement of property assessment cases filed by Lake George Campsites LLC and Key Lock LLC.
All right, these 2 were part of an Article 7, the Lake George Campsites and Key Lock Crime Storage, and it's been going on for years, and this is the settlement. The Key Lock property, located at 25 Triangle Park, their contention of their assessment will be discontinued. The Lake George Campsites, located at 1053 State Route 9, shall be reduced as follows. Their original assessment in 2011 was $1,037,400. The new assessment will be $812,000, a $225,400 reduction, and it goes down to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 with similar reductions to 2017, where the assessed value was $1,196,200. The assessed value will be $995,000, a $201,200 reduction. And it will remain $995,000 for the years 2018, 2019, and 2020. Now, refunds will have to be given out. The school is on board in this, and we anticipate that they will be approving this. The town assessor approves this settlement. The refunds will not include interest, and they've agreed no interest will be included. All right, so that's to settle that Article 7 arrangement. Resolution 411.
Resolution authorizing development agreement by and among the town of Queensbury and Spruce Hospitality Group LLC and Big Boom Realty LLC for the Fairfield Inn and Suites Hotel project.
All right, when we got together and we re-engineered the Exit 18 zoning, the Exit 18 zoning area, in our discussion, we included landowners, potential developers, zoning experts. Everybody got involved. We did a series of studies. There is plenty of sewer for the kind of development we want there. There's some things we have to do to make sure that the sewage flow stays adequate for the area, but it's ample, provided we do a couple of things. One we have already done, and one we've got to do down the road. Now, there will be some traffic issues as Exit 18 develops. And the developers have agreed to put skin in the game. Now, Spruce Hospitality, and they are the developer of the proposed Fairfield Inn and Suites Hotel, which will be located on Big Boom Road in back of the former Carl Lars. And nothing they're doing is calling for immediate mitigation of the traffic in the area. The hotel traffic flow is quite fine with what's currently there. However, moving down the road as other development occurs, we want each developer to put a little skin in the game. So it was estimated that this developer may have, let's say, a 6% share in the potential mitigation, which could cost as much as $645,000. So their share is $38,000, and they're fine with it. The developer and the developer's agent, the attorney, are both here. Should you have any questions? And their contention is, why should we put up cash? We can put up something fairly equivalent to that. And so they want to contribute their 6% or $38,000 of off-site transportation improvements. In lieu of a performance bond, they will put up $38,000 in security deposit. So we discussed this with the board, and that proposal seemed to satisfy the concerns on this board. And is there any clarification you would like to do, or did I?
Guarantee instead of a performance bond.
Yes, okay, guarantee. John Lapper, the attorney for the applicant, Spruce Hospitality Group. Okay, so that's what this resolution is aiming to approve. Resolution 412.
This is a revised resolution as well. Resolution authorizing application for rebate funding of EV charging station purchase installations.
Okay. The town board is interested in at least getting our foot in the door. We're not sure if we're going to pursue this. We're not sure what manner we're going to pursue this. But if you want to get grant funding from the DEC for these EV charging stations, which Lake George, I understand, has put one up, we may put up 1, 2, 4, maybe not. We don't know. But to get our foot in the door for the application, you have to have the application in by May 31st. So this is the last town board meeting before then. So Kathy Bozzoni asked us if we would at least approve applying for the grant money. Now, Stu Baker, who is the town planner, you know, he's got a lot of questions, and I think they're legitimate questions, and I don't know if you've seen the most recent email, Kathy Bizzoni, she kind of answers some of those concerns about these EV stations. Like I said, we don't know if we're going to go forward with them. This isn't saying yes to the EV stations, it's saying yes to the application of the grant. We can always say no afterwards.
And we made revisions to the resolution to make it very clear that it was no commitment to funds until we knew the details.
Okay, and so, you know, the devil might be in the details. So, again, it seemed to be a popular idea, at least with the sense of, well, let's look into it further from the town board, and with the date of May 31st, it just kind of puts us in a place where, okay, well, let's approve it. If we don't like what we're seeing after we approve it, we learn more about it, then we just won't go forward with it. Or if we like what we're seeing, we're comfortable with it, maybe we will go forward with some of it. All right, resolution 413, last resolution, folks.
Resolution authorizing tree removal services at Pine View and West Glens Falls cemeteries.
All right, Connie Gatter, who is the superintendent of cemeteries for the town of Queensbury, had received 3 quotes from some trees that she has to have taken down in the cemetery. The lowest quote was from High Peaks Tree Removal at $5,500. Those are the resolutions before us. Anybody in the town?
Mr. Supervisor, can I just clarify? You went fast by 411, which was the Spruce Hospitality. The resolution before you has a provision saying that we're accepting the agreement in the form presented, but I understood that there was a change, and I just want to read language to add to that to make sure it's what the town board's decision is. It sounds like it's with a revision to that agreement to not require a security deposit or bond, but to accept a guarantee in form acceptable to town supervisor. Is that what I understood? I just want to make sure, because the current resolution
I'm say yes.
the current resolution
needs
that to agree to that change.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Bob.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bob. All right. Any member of the public wish to speak to any resolutions before the town board tonight? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Robert Loggins. I moved up to Queensbury on Dartmoor Drive 3 years ago to retire with my wife and to raise my grandchildren. I was actually very pleased tonight with Resolution 4.2, and then very disappointed that that's the only resolution on the board member's agenda tonight that has been changed. This is more than a health hazard. This is a property that has been not maintained for 2 years. I called the town and code department last year. They told me they were going to put it on a mow list. They never, ever, I believe, entered that property. It's in the same condition as it was a year ago. The property has been vacant for 2 years. There are 3 properties that border this property. Between the 3 properties, my neighbors, we have taken down 20 large trees on those 3 properties due to disease, being dead, and so on. I brought pictures tonight of the property that's on the resolution, which is 35 Fox Hollow, of all the trees, the dead trees and branches. I've had branches cross my property the size of this coffee mug that hit through a gazebo, that hit through a grape arbor, that has gone through my fence and wrecked 20 feet of my fence, 30 feet onto my property. Between that arbor and gazebo and the sheds that have been damaged, which can be repaired and have been repaired, and my fence can be repaired and has been repaired. What can't be repaired is between those property line and those things where the branches have fallen. I have horseshoe pits, I have cornhole pits, I have my grandchildren playing in the yard. My pool was open today. The pool is 3 feet from the arbor that was destroyed by a branch that came off those trees. This neighbor has 4 trees that borders his property and my property. They're all leaning toward my property. You can hear crackling in the woods. I have, like I said, I have pictures of his property and his trees. I'd be glad to leave them with you. Besides that, I appreciated my conversation with Mr. Ferrone, who I hope not by coincidence, put this as a resolution, because this is an ongoing problem. It's more than the looks of the property. It's more than the hole in the garage. It's the safety hazard, which I'm now on public record saying, if any of my grandchildren or family gets hurt from a fallen tree or a branch, it's now going to be liability of the town, because this doesn't cost the town anything. This resolution was changed this evening. Dates were changed. This doesn't even cost the town a penny. This is going on the lien of the property, according to the resolution.
Yeah, but there's only so much we're allowed to do by law.
We have given them a month to respond. They have not done so. On the resolution, you gave them a date, I believe, of May 15th. They have not responded. I'm not sure why we're extending that another 30 days with my backyard now open, my pool open, and kids and family in that backyard. It's a safety hazard, and I would ask that you change the resolution back to the original one that was on the agenda for tonight.
We can do that if the board wishes. So that was 10 days.
Would you like me to submit pictures?
Yes, please submit the pictures.
I have pictures of the damage in my yard. I have pictures of the trees in their yard.
Keep in mind that there's only so much we can do. We can't go onto someone's private property and take down a tree. I mean,
that's not what this resolution does.
No.
I was coming tonight to add that to the resolution, so I was kind of disappointed that the resolution as is was changed.
Yeah.
The dates were changed.
Well, we can, if it's the will of the 3 members of the board that are here tonight to go back to the 10 days. I talked to Dave Patton. He's the building and codes director. He had talked to the attorney, to these people, and according to the attorney, they're going to be in there cleaning it up pronto. But Dave said, I still want you to go ahead with the resolution to say to the attorney, listen, you know, you've got till such and such a date. He wanted a little bit of that one, but we can go back to the 10 days.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, okay. And if that's...
I looked at the property. I mean, it's a blight on the neighborhood. It's a very well-kept street and area. The other thing is, and again, I can't speak from a legal perspective, but you're talking about things hanging over your property line and your property. I think you have a right to trim those things. I mean, don't take me, chiseled in stone.
Your attorney.
Yeah. But if there's a concern there, I mean, from a safety hazard,
you may find that to be true.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So Bob will change that back to the way it was.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Within 10 days.
Yep, that's the what it says.
All right. Anybody else wish to speak to any of the resolutions, 13 resolutions before the town board today? Yes, sir.
Travis, go ahead. I'd like to talk about 4.9, which is giving me a case of deja vu. This is about an application. They applied some chemicals on Hubby Pond. Happened in 2016. An order of consent came down from the DEC in 2017. And today we hear about it a year later. Sounds very much like what happened to the audit from the Department of State with David Decker. The fines that came down from the Department of Labor, which we didn't hear about until very late. And now we have this. And why does it matter? I mean, well, it matters, first of all, that you let us know that there are issues that are going on in town. Second of all, I can recall several times in the past couple of months where you have approved contracts with Solitude for additional work. And, if this was noted that there were some concerns about their work, perhaps, that would have been brought up at those times. So I do believe that, you should be telling us all the news, good and bad. Of course, you say that we didn't do it, but then again, you say that we did do it, and you're trying to interpret the instructions. Instructions sounded pretty clear to me. You don't take down the signs until they tell you that it's clear. You don't turn on the water until they tell you that it's clear. One of the things additionally in that material that's attached to this is that they said that they never got the 2 water samples that they had requested. And then they finally got a single water sample a month after they had requested it. So there was obviously a delay in them saying, yes, we see that it is clear now. Now you can turn on the water. Now you can take down the signs. But evidently you felt that it would be okay to do it when you felt it would be okay to do it. Resolution 4.7, the audit of bills. In there is $3,000 for fertilizer, and that's being charged to Warren County occupancy tax. Now, you've been through this. These charges must be directly related to tourism, and I don't know what buying fertilizer for a town field how that would directly relate to tourism. This is not the first time this has been brought up. This was brought up a year ago, and it'll probably be brought up now at the county in the next few weeks. Resolution 4.12, the charging stations. It's interesting. I've seen pictures of the charging station at the water plant now twice in the newspaper. And I've also understand that the Nissan Leaf has yet to show up here. Yet we were in such a hurry to get it passed in February. Now we have monies available through the grant that our committee has worked to obtain. We could purchase one now, but we needed it so badly in February, and yet it's still not here. I asked this question 2 months ago, and you said, well, it takes a couple of weeks. Be a couple of weeks more. It's been a couple months more. So I'd like to know where that is when you go ahead and give your report. And then lastly, I would like to, and if that's the end, I'll come back in my 4 minutes and express the last one, because it's not going to change your voting anyhow. Or would you rather have me do it now? I heard the beep.
You're going to be back for the 4 minutes anyway.
I'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, yeah, I just learned today about what the two issues were. And they, Solitude takes the blame for that. Park and Rec does receive $35,000 from occupancy tax, because so much of what they do does bring visitors to the area. So I'm not sure of the specifics of how they spend that, but I'm sure they have a rationalization to do so. Okay, anybody else like to speak to any of the 13 resolutions before us tonight?
You could just respond to Mr. Whitehead's question about the charging stations, because that's completely different than what the committee was looking at. Remember, those were the charging stations that were going to bring people to the area with EV vehicles.
Different charging station.
Well, I think he thinks it's somewhat related to the car and the charging station.
Not related.
Yeah, I know that's.
Yeah, not related. Okay. Now, and as far as the delivery of the Nissan Leaf, I have control over that? I don't. They're going to deliver it when they deliver it, and I'm hoping they deliver it before the end of the month. I ask Chris Harrington about it all the time. He says, I call them up, and they say, any day, I will have, But, okay. All right, seeing no other takers for the 13 resolutions. Town board, have any thoughts? Any roll call ones? You want to call for a roll call?
No. I actually would like, and I know this is, well, I don't think it's going to cause a problem, but 401 EMR, I have their client in their insurance agency, so I'd like to pull it, but I see the date, it's June 30th, so we will have another meeting before the contract expires, because if I abstain, then it doesn't pass. So can we table?
I guess we'll have to.
I apologize. I didn't know that Catherine.
Well, nobody knew. We had one council person that had to go to their son's Annapolis graduation, and another one felt ill. Can't not control that. Thank you, Tony. We will put that on for June 4th.
All right, so for resolutions 4.2 to 413, is there any motion to move those forward?
I'll introduce.
Introduced by Councilman Medevere.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Ferone. Roll call vote on resolutions 4.2 through 413.
Councilpersons Barone,
Yes.
Stroud,
Yes.
and Menavere.
Yes.
Okay. Any correspondence?
I do have the monthly report from Building and Codes from May.
Okay, thank
For
you.
April, sorry.
All right, privilege of the floor. And your opportunity to talk about any town issues in the town board. Yes, sir.
Still Travis Whitehead. It was 4.8 that I was going to mention, and I did want to commend you for going to the New York State contract reporter and getting bids for the Buckbee Road Culvert Replacement Project. You got 6 bids. The highest bid was 50% more than the lowest bid, so there was quite a range there. I will note that I went back and looked at 10 years worth of records at the New York State contract reporter, and there was only one other time when that was used by the town. And actually, that time it was withdrawn before the end of the cycle. So really, this is the very first time that this has gone on New York State contract reporter. I think that you can see that the results were good, and I don't know why you don't do it all of the time. This brings up another issue. There was an RFP that closed a week or two ago, and this was for LED streetlight upgrades. And this was not advertised in the New York State contract reporter, even though it was stated and gone over with town council to put that in the resolution to require it. It still was never advertised at New York State contract reporter. And it was only advertised in the local paper, in the legal part of it, for one day, as well as being on the town website. And you ended up with one and only one bid of $44,000. Now, I saw this happening, and I was questioning it, and I called up the fellow that put in these lights here, these LED lights here, and asked him if he was contacted by the town, and he told me no, and he was unaware that there was any RFP out there for street lighting. So I sent him that and asked him if he would like to bid on it, if he would please bid on it. He came in at $21,863, less than half of the other bid. And this is something that repeats itself time after time after time, year after year after year. And I do not know why you all own homes. You would not go get a painting job or anything else without a couple of bids. Why do you allow this to happen? Because it's our money instead of your money? Is that why you're doing that? I mean, I don't understand. And it's not just the board today, it goes back for years. So I hope that 4.8 is the first step in a change in the way that you do business. I just hope it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to this? Yes, sir.
Thank you. For the record, my name is John Salvador. You will recall my delivering to you the results of the Waterkeeper's 2016 algae analysis on Dunham Bay. At that time, I pointed out to you your responsibility to abate this pollution under Section 1709 of the Environmental Conservation Law. Since that time, we have produced a flow chart of activities that we would undertake, the town would undertake,
to come to a point of abating this pollution. And at one of your April meetings, I received assurance in your absence, Mr. Stroud, that Mr. Medivere would bring forth a proposal for our advisory committee, the Dunham Bay Advisory Committee, pertaining to the action the town intends to take to enforce the law. Now, we've done everything we can to establish where the pollution is occurring. Now we have just come on the street this week, the 2017 analysis, okay? And I'll read to you some key sentences in that report. While deep water sampling is indicating a healthy vitality of the lake with minor shifts in standards, the littoral zone is experiencing more drastic water quality changes, as evidenced by the excessive littoral benthic algae blooms. Previous studies conducted by the Lake George Waterkeeper that began in 2008 focused on forms of algae present and documented underwater conditions through photographs and samplings in 2014 and indicated possible impacts from organic pollution. Continuing. Dunham Bay algae biomonitoring efforts in 2016 documented conditions following the implementation of the wastewater management district. Subsequent sampling conducted in 2017 showed continued improvement in water quality where systems have been replaced and identified new sites with high organic pollution. It is these new sites with high organic pollution that we've got to come to grips with. We know where this is occurring. We know there are two major commercial activities going on Dunham Bay, which are contributing to this pollution. The town has got to come forth with an enforcement program. These people have to be confronted, as others have on Dunham Bay, okay, and do something about their problem. We're going to have a meeting, the advisory committee, on May 30th in your conference room. The Waterkeeper intends to attend that meeting. What is lacking in this report is identification of the sites. They have very carefully grafted everything. Very good report. The sites are identified as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got to pin the tail on the donkey.
All right, John, thank you.
Okay.
And I agree with you.
You will attend that?
If it's in my schedule, I will. But
May 30th.
Yeah.
If not, someone in your absence.
Well, we started an Algae Committee. We started a flow chart on how to attack this problem. Chris Nowitzki, who is the Waterkeeper under the umbrella of the Fund for Lake George, asked us to hold out. He's working on some things that he thinks will be very productive in relation to this problem. And I think I forwarded his most recent efforts to you. I think you have them. And I'm glad that he's going to be at our next meeting to be able to share with us what he's uncovered.
Yeah. The Waterkeeper is interested in testing and gathering data and all this stuff.
Let's give him a chance.
We've got to begin to take action.
I agree with you.
Okay.
All right.
Remember, I maintain a bathing beach on Dunham Bay, very close to where this pollution is occurring. I don't want to have my bathing beach shut down the way the village had to shut down Shepherd's Park, the way the town of Lake George had to shut down the Diamond Point Beach.
All right, John.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you said, and I agree with you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
piled up now.
Why not?
Ron Ball, Queensbury. Back in 2012, I held a protest up on the West Mountain Road protesting the cell tower going on our water tower property in the town of Queensbury. During that protest, I got some 200 signatures of people against that. A guy that worked for the planning board, Keith Olburn, has got more than 100 of them. He never gave me a copy back, so I assume they still have them. I have right here another 100 names of people that didn't want that cell tower to go on our property. The cell tower goes up there, probably cost $5 million to build. And what it did is, it's eroding our road that's washing out the road that leads to the water tower. And it's also collecting stormwater runoff in about a 500 lineal feet ditch, and it's dumping onto my property, which is illegal. You can't collect stormwater runoff and dump it onto somebody else's property. When Ron Matesi was on here, he was part of the Warren erosion control in soil, and I asked him, because it's a subsidiary of DEC, I asked him to look into this, and he never did. He never got a hold of DEC, so I'm asking you people to get a hold of DEC. Come and look at this situation. You think you got a problem with Hoovy Pond with DEC, you would have even a bigger problem up there. I brought this up again. I got 200 people, I believe around 200 people that was against that. They didn't want it there. They pay no tax. They pay about $1,000 a month rent, a lease to Queensbury. And yet...
No, to the water district.
To the water district. And it brought my school tax down. My assessed value of my property dropped $32,000 when the cell tower went up there. So they don't pay any school tax, but it has a reverse effect on schools. Something needs to be done here. I brought this up, and nobody wants to talk about it. And Mr. Medevere, when I brought Mr. Medevere up there to show him the erosion and how it's being dumped onto my property, he said we, meaning us Queensbury taxpayers, can pay to fix that. That's what his statement was. And he said that to me. Am I right, Mr. Medevere? Yeah. Well, that's what the question I got. And then someone said they were thinking about putting a dry well about halfway down that mountain. If you put a dry well halfway down that mountain, it's not on flat ground, that water's going to find a way to seep out. And once it does, it can wash out that whole hill, okay? And if you do not do anything, and if you stop the water and you want it running onto my property and you send it down to West Mountain Road, that whole road's going to wash out. This whole problem was created with Verizon. Dan Stack and Ron Matesi allowed this to go through. Craig Brown, our zoning administrator, approved something that should not have been approved. He should have just stayed away from it. Why he allowed it? George Ostrander agreed that we could put the cell tower up there. He was the superintendent of the water department at the time. He said we could work it there. All these people in Queensbury are against this. 35 of these names on here, people live in legal estates. They're afraid what could happen there. And this town is doing nothing. And now they want to fix it. You're in an awful mess here, and you don't hear anything from anyone.
Okay. Well,
something should be done.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
You too. Anybody else like to speak to the town board on any town topic? Good. Seeing none, town board discussions. Tony, I know you.
I know I gotta get going, but no, I have nothing tonight.
George? All right, well, for the sake of trying to get, there's one thing I do have to mention, and that is a week from today,
Glens Falls and Queensbury go work together. We do on many things. This one's a very good thing. It is on the Memorial Day Parade. It starts at 10 a.m., starts in downtown Glens Falls, proceeds to Crandall Park, where we'll have a remembrance ceremony following the parade. And it's a remembrance ceremony because we need to remember. The theme this year is for those who fell. Memorial Day is not Veterans Day. Well, it is and it isn't. It's for those men and women who have fought, worked to preserve the values of our country, the values that we appreciate today, and are not with us anymore in physical form. It's to memorialize that ultimate dedication to this nation. That's what the parade is all about, and the remembrance ceremony following it. We have 4 Grand Marshals. Robert Garland, he fought in the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Walter Duckett, the Korean War. Emil Lindstrand and Anthony Simeon. Lindstrand, I said that. 4 Grand Marshals. I try and get as many as I can. We used to do 1 or 2. And then last year we had, I think, 4. And somebody called me up and they said, how about this person? And I said, well, it's like 3 or 4 days before Memorial Day. And I said, I will give them recognition because they deserve it. And I did at the remembrance ceremony. And I had that person stand up and I explained that person's story and why they deserve the recognition that they got that day. This year, they're one of our Grand Marshals. But one of the others that I got didn't make it through the year. And so that's why we're trying to get as many Grand Marshals as we can. And Kathleen, I sent you the press release with everything on there. And again, Bob Garland, who is one of our Grand Marshals, is also going to be our keynote speaker. But as part of the outreach program, to make sure that our young people understand what this is all about, we have essay contests, we have poster contests, and you probably have seen the posters. We printed out 200 of them. There were 6 winners, 2 first place, and the committee was tied on the second place in both Glens Falls and Queensbury. So we got 3 winning posters from Queensbury, 3 winning posters from Glens Falls. The vets and the others in the committee just could not break the tie. So they admitted to award 2 second place winners. All right, so the essay winners. Glens Falls' Tess Harrington, congratulations, and she will be at the remembrance ceremony to read her essay. And Madison McDermott from Queensbury High School. And I want to thank cooperating teachers Katie Yarney and Mary Tully. On the poster contest, I'd like to thank cooperating teachers in Queensbury, Mackenzie Monroe, and cooperating teacher Susan Botch for Glens Falls. The winners, Shelby Bushy, first place, Jaden Malley and Nikki Fideli for second. And in Glens Falls, Aiden Wright won first, Trevor Britton and Isabel Dickey. Now, I do have those in JPEGs. If Postard's willing to carry those, I can send those forward. We'll see. All right. So, and we'll also be sharing with you more detailed way the story behind the 4 Grand Marshals. And in the press release, we do have copies of the winning posters, but if you're around town, you've got to see them. They're wonderful posters. They did, every year they get better. And then we have the Liberated, okay? We have 4 women, or 5 women and 1 guy who were part of the World War II experience in Europe, lived through it, lived to tell their tale, and they're still alive. They're still with us. So we give them recognition in the parade and in the remembrance ceremony. Pia Baldwin, Susan Canavan, Kathy Mastrangelo, Adolph Meyer, Kara Rudnick, Erica St. John, and Gunther Kras-Vutrias. Each one has an interesting tale, and I've shared that with Kathleen in the Post-Star and the E-Chronicle. And so you'll probably be reading about these people, and they deserve all the recognition that we can give them. But again, a week from today, Monday, at 10 a.m., the parade, and probably around 11:30 for the remembrance ceremony. Please, don't let it rain. It's too much work. We started organizing this in February. All right, so I did have to make that announcement. Sorry, Tony, but that's an absolute must. And I'll skip that. I just want to thank, we've had some storm surges recently, and I want to thank National Grid. I want to thank National Grid for getting together the resources. I can't believe that the other, line repair companies and so forth were up here as fast as they were. But I also have to give credit to our highway department and our fire companies. And the EMS squads were involved too, but not so much. But clearing the roads and getting electricity back on as soon as we could, I think they all deserve credit for that.
I don't understand how the the utility companies do it. I mean, they were here within hours.
Yeah. So crazy. They deserve a lot of credit.
I met some guy from he was from Cape Cod, and he was up at the lake when he was working on the house next door. And he said he's going to move here. He said it's the most beautiful place in the country. I said, "You live in Cape Cod?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "But this is much nicer."
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
So that was interesting.
All right,
nice guy.
Okay, and Tony and the town board, I was not here, but on behalf of Lake George Central School District, I wish to sincerely thank you for recognizing Lake George Central School District boys varsity basketball team for being the New York State Public High School Athletic Association Class C champions. Very truly yours, Lynn Rutnick. Okay, so
that was fun.
Yeah. All right, so also, last thing, and I'm not going to go through my usual, okay? But I do have to say this too.
I have to get to the airport, that's all. So,
on behalf of the New York State Town Clerks Association, it is my honor and pleasure to inform you that Caroline Barber, Town Clerk, has been awarded this association's certification as a registered municipal clerk. This prestigious award recognizes the professional competency of Mrs. Barber in fulfilling the responsibilities of her office. Certification is granted only after an applicant has demonstrated that they have met stringent education and experience requirements established by the New York State Clerks Association. And it goes on to give you other accolades. I wanted to make sure that we publicly recognize that. I think that's a great achievement, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have one thing.
Yes.
Yesterday, I awarded a plaque to Matthew Burrows, who achieved his Eagle Scout recognition. Great young man, great family, nice ceremony. So it was my first one, I'll admit, and I was very nervous, but I got through it, and they were very, very appreciative, especially of the plaque that we give them. They were actually wowed by the plaque.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Great ceremony. So congratulations to Matthew.
And thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? All right, I'd like to thank Look TV, Joe Barlow, our cameraman, our sponsors, especially Stored Tech, and thank you, Bob and Caroline, and town board and public for coming. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilman Ferrone, seconded by Councilman Meadowbeer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. We're now adjourned. Thank you.
Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian-American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcomed. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.